Hello, everyone. Mulibonji Bonse, and welcome. My name is Christopher Shagnon. I'm a PhD researcher at the University of Helsinki in Global Development Studies, and today I am going to present data extractivism and social pollution in Zambia. So, we have a bunch of things to get through today in a fairly short period of time, but here's what we're going to look at. We're going to quickly look at extractivism, look at the intersection of data and extractivism, zoom in on the concept of social pollution. Then we'll get to the Zambian context. We'll go over the methodology of my research. Then we will get into expressions of social pollution in Zambia. And finally, wrap things up. So, extractivism. Of course, this is very popular nowadays, and it is a huge topic. I've taught classes on this. There are books written about it. But just in a nutshell, just in case you are unfamiliar with it, it comes from the Latin American context. And of course, the academic context in Latin America is highly critical of the global north. It draws upon political ecology, of course, different aspects of political economy, such as world systems theory, dependency theory. There are many different aspects about this, but just for time's sake, we're only going to go through a few important things here in the defining characteristics. One of them is extractivism causes a drain, which results in damage or depletion, which is potentially irreversible. This drain can be analyzed as resource and wealth flows at and through different nested levels: local, state, regional, global. Extractivism creates, exacerbates, and is dependent upon inequalities, and extractivism erases preceding life forms, produces toxic environments, and expands monocultural or monotonous forms of life. Looking at the intersection of data and extractivism. So with this, it's thinking of personal data like a resource. And as Coldry Mejias pointed out, data is not simply a resource, but it is unique in that it is a social resource. So in a nutshell, just as extractivism causes damage to the natural environment with spillover damages to societies, data extractivism causes damage to the social environment with spillover damages to the natural environment. The concept of social pollution comes from a book chapter that I wrote with my frequent collaborator, Sophia Hagelani-Albov, entitled Data Extractivism, Social Pollution, and Real-World Costs. Social pollution can be defined as the harmful and destructive impacts extractivist approaches to data have on societies. We broke these up into three broad areas. The first is toxifying the social environment. This is things like political polarization, spread of misinformation, spread of hate, cyberbullying, addiction, dependency, impacts on memory, impacts on sleep, impacts on our ability to delay gratification, changes to interactions with the world and society, and so on. There's also aspects of homogeneity. So big tech companies like to project what I like to call tech universalism. They like to pretend that there's only one way to develop, deploy, and engage with technology, and that is their way, the Northern California hyper-capitalist way. But in reality, tech is a tool, and tools are developed, deployed, and engaged with differently in different cultures around the world. So this approach of homogeneity has an impact of marginalizing other approaches, cultures, and languages. There's also the aspect of inequalities, which are myriad. For example, there's socioeconomic ones, access to finance for development, labor, then of course outsourced labor, and so on. So there's an important thing to note here quickly because it always comes up. In saying the social pollution, we are not saying that, there was no bullying before the internet or there was no misinformation before the internet. Rather, that these extractivist approaches create an environment that allows these sorts of things to spread. Looking quickly at the Zambian context. So, of course, Zambia is a landlocked country in southern Africa, has a population of about 20 million, and it is a highly diverse country. There are 72 tribes, 286 chiefdoms, 38 living indigenous languages. And of those, there are seven officially recognized indigenous languages. Those are Bemba, Nyanja, Tonga, Lozi, Lunda, Lubale, and Kaunde. Though, in the Constitution, English is the official language. It is important to note that although English is the official language, it is something that everyone studies in school, but for many people, it is simply a subject in school. English proficiency is not necessarily high for everyone nationwide, and this is especially true of poorer people and people in rural areas. Looking at some quick internet statistics from the ICT regulator, Zambia has about a 60% internet penetration rate. 9.5% of households own a computer. 82% of internet users primarily access via mobile device. 79% of internet users are on social media, and 91% of those are on Facebook. However, internet access is primarily concentrated in urban areas. Zambia is a unique, exciting, and dynamic context. There are new regulations that came in 2021. There's the Data Protection Act and Cybersecurity and Cybercrimes Act. They're trying to roll out e-government with the Smart Zambia Institute, which started in 2022. The current government is promoting tech as a avenue of national development. And just overall, there's a dynamic and growing tech sector. This headline from Tech Cabal in June 2023, Zambia is prepping to become Africa's next major tech hub. Quickly looking at my methodology, I went to Zambia 3 times between August 2022 and April 2024 to collect data and spent about 12 months overall. My data collection included interviews and surveys with 70 individuals in 3 sectors: the tech sector, public sector, and civil society, though the plurality of respondents were from the tech sector. Overall, I took the interviews, surveys, notes, my journal, and put them into Atlas TI for coding, then used inductive analysis. So looking now at expressions of social pollution in Zambia, every single respondent that I spoke with could point to some form of social pollution. However, many of these were rather global or general, falling under the toxifying the social environment. Things like addiction, changes to interactions with the world, and by this it's a bunch of different things such as people not talking as much, people taking photos of their meals instead of talking and interacting. And of course, then aspects, impacting attention span, sleep, all these sorts of things. However, when you look at homogenization, this ends up having more unique local impacts. A big one worth pointing out is language. So no big tech platform is available in any Zambian indigenous language. There is Bemba within Google Translate. However, I've been told that it's not very good, one. And two, if you actually look at the terms of service in Google Sites, you can't actually get them in Bemba. What all this means is there's no content moderation in or of indigenous languages, which makes it a lot easier for misinformation and hate to spread. But even beyond this, even locally developed apps are often in English. And it makes sense in a certain way. So there's, of course, an assumption that the people who are going to be using the apps need to be able to afford the devices. So wealthier people. Wealthier people are usually better educated, so they will speak better English. But even beyond this, there is somewhat an issue of funding. In some ways, the tech sector is mirroring issues that one sees in the development sector. Funders are often coming from the global north, NGOs or investors, and just as with the development sector, they don't necessarily want to fund things that come from the local context. What they want more is to fund what they want to do and or reproduce something that is working in the global north. Even e-government with the Smart Zambia Institute, the websites and e-government platforms that they're rolling out are in English. I was able to speak with some people from there, and There were a few reasons behind this. Of course, as previously mentioned, there's an assumption that the earliest adopters will be people who speak English better, simply because they have the devices. But beyond that, there's also an aspect that they want to roll out the e-government quickly. So with that, they're working with foreign workers and foreign companies who don't speak Zambian languages. However, the people I spoke with did also say that once they get these platforms up and running, they would like to have them in the seven major indigenous languages. Now, for probably, I think, the most interesting one, negative impacts on or forced changes to culture. The example that I have is the Nchwala ceremony. The Nchwala ceremony is an annual ceremony of the Ngoni people, celebrating the end of the rainy season, past military victories over the British, as well as the arrival of the Ngoni people into what is now their homeland in eastern Zambia, Malawi, and Mozambique. My wife is Ngoni, and I was fortunate to attend Nchwala in March 2024 and be able to speak with people there. So with all of this, I was thinking a lot, like, how do I describe this? And I realized for a presentation, the easiest thing is to show people. But warning, there will be skin. So if that scares you, prepare to look away. In three, two, one. So this is in Nchwala 2014. I got this from an official document that was recording the ceremony as well as describing what was going on and the cultural significance of different parts. As we can see here, dress. Women from the Mazima village arrive. The Ngoni say they bare their bodies to express power. So, not wearing a shirt is not simply a fashion choice or because of temperatures. There is deep cultural significance to it. I do also realize the extreme irony in censoring this image. But so with this, let's take a look at Nchwala 2020. I think you can see here pretty quickly what a significant difference it is. So when I was doing my interviews, the example of Nchwala was brought up numerous times. It's important to note that it's not totally unheard of for people to wear shirts. Young girls who are participating wear shirts. Ngoni who are from neighboring countries, when they're coming in to participate, sometimes the women will wear shirts. But the big reason for this change, and this was confirmed when I was able to speak with people, was that social media AI content moderation was flagging their videos from Nchwala as pornography because nipples. Again, this goes to the irony of me having to censor that because of YouTube's AI content moderation and me not wanting this video to be taken down because it could be flagged as pornography. So with the growth of social media, dance troupes have changed what they wear to avoid their pictures being taken down. They're faced with a impossible choice. If they want to share their art, their culture with the world, they have to change a deep symbolic part of that culture. And of course, this AI content moderation is based on sensibilities of the global north, and the people who are designing that AI probably don't even know what the Nchwala ceremony is. So in conclusion, culture is a living thing. It changes over time. But I don't think that AI content moderation should be forcing people to change their culture in order to share it with the world. It might not be easy, but things don't have to be this way. For big tech companies, a homogenous approach is cheaper. Polarization, misinformation, and hate are profitable because it gets people engaging, gets more data harvested, gets more eyeballs and advertisements. But there are highly skilled people from cultures around the world who can do this and do it better if they can get the funding. Thank you all very much. Zakomo Kwambiri. If you want to get in touch with me, if you have any questions or, anything like that, please email me at christopher.shagnon@helsinki.fi.